Welcome to our first book group meeting of 2025. We have such an exciting lineup this year, and I'm thrilled to be able to start with Marianne Cronin, who is an excellent writer and wrote such a delightful book. It's been fun to hear from so many book group members about how this book just changed their lives in a positive way. It's just got so much heart to it that I too really agreed with. This is one of my favorite reads that we've done in our book group so far, and it was exciting to discover a new to me author, and a fairly new author at that. This is only her second book. So her first book was an international hit. It was called The 100 Years of Lenny and Margot, which of course I'm now going to go back and read. And then with her second book, Eddie Winston is Looking for Love. This book here has such a pretty cover. It's an uplifting, heartwarming story, like I said, about the power of friendship and, what it can do to change our lives. And it's kind of friendship in unlikely places. And that's what I loved about it, is it was something that I hadn't encountered in a book before. And I thought it was really clever and fresh and fun. So anyway, they find love in very unexpected places. We'll bring Marianne on in just a bit. But if you haven't finished the book, don't worry. We're not going to do any spoilers. You have until the 15th of February to finish this book to be able to record it for our giveaway. So we always allow a little extra time beyond our book group meeting. And so we will avoid spoilers, as I said, and be sure to like and share this video so that you'll be entered to win a $50 gift card? Yeah, $50 gift card to the Brenda Novak store. So it helps other people discover our group so that we can include more and more people and find those readers who love the same novels that we do. So thank you so much in advance for doing that. February's book box, which is about to go out in like a week or so, has so many fun things in it. It's our 8th anniversary box. And we wanted to do something really special for this box. We couldn't believe that we have been doing this for 8 years. It's incredible just to get one box out. It takes so much effort, so many pieces coming together, but it's so rewarding when we see how much everybody loves it. And we have such great things planned. So in February's box, we decided to celebrate our 8-year anniversary by doing a Galentine's party. And for those of you who haven't heard of Galentine's, I think everybody has by now, but it's the day before Thanksgiving, or Valentine's. I don't know where I got Thanksgiving, day before Valentine's. And so February 13th. And it's a way to celebrate a different kind of love, friendship, which was so fitting, I think, for Eddie Winston is Looking for Love. They find love in friendship as well. And so we are going to be celebrating that. And so we want you to join us. It's going to be via Zoom, but you don't have to worry about downloading Zoom. We will send you a link. You can just click on it and get on. We'll have a test run before where Alexa will help all of those who feel challenged by Zoom, because we want to include everybody. It's going to be so fun. We have games planned. We've got some musical entertainment. Devin Wright, who is my favorite local artist, he will be there to do some songs. If you remember, I've had him at one party before. And he did a great job. He's really wonderful. He actually made it onto The Voice, but the teams were full, so he never got to perform for the judges. But he's very talented, and we're excited that we will have him. We will all, in February's box, we are going to have these cute sunglasses that we want to get a big group picture. So that we are going to get you all set up for the party. You're going to have a fun heart banner so that you can decorate. There's going to be a fun surprise in that. We are going to have this darling candle making kit that Alexa has spent days and days creating these cute bags for everybody. And there's going to be 2 heart candles in here. And when she first told me we were doing heart candles, I thought, oh, heart candles, that'll be fun. But I wasn't as excited until I saw the cute mold, and it's beautiful. I don't know if you guys saw it, but on my socials, I posted a picture of it, and it's not just your regular heart candle. It's very pretty. So we will get to do 2 of those, one for ourselves, one for a friend, and we'll do one of them together with the owner of Verba Candle Company. She did the beautiful twirl candles that we had in November's box, and she does everything, with the highest quality ingredients, nothing that you have to be worried about. We do include scent. I know some people ask me that, but you don't have to put it in. If you're sensitive to scent, you don't have to do that, and it comes in a bag where you don't have to ruin any pans melting your wax. You just put it in the microwave, and it comes out. So anyway, we're going to have fun candle making and doing giveaways and games and musical entertainment. So you're not going to want to miss that. You get a ticket to it in February's box, which is only $62, or you can get a subscription and sign up monthly so that you get everything we have planned, because we're going to be doing fun things like this throughout the year. So another way to come to the party, if you're not getting February's box, is just to pay $5 for the ticket itself. That's just to cover our expenses for Zoom, the musical entertainment, Verba Candle Company's participation. And so it's just a nominal amount that we can get to cover those hard costs. But we would love everybody to come, even if you can't afford February's box or don't want to get the whole box, which is also going to include an autographed copy of Twilight in Paris, which is Pam Jenoff's new book. It's a World War II historical. I've talked before about how much I love historicals. They are probably my favorite genre. So I am so excited to dive into this book. And we kind of thought too, it was nice to change things up after going from such a warm, funny literary read this month to kind of a maybe a little darker drama like of a historical. So it's going to be fabulous. I've heard great things about it. So you're definitely going to want to participate and get an autographed copy of that book. And when you do get all the boxes, then at the end of the year, you have an autographed copy of each of the books that we've read, which is a fun thing to collect. I love looking at my shelf after I get them all after the year, and I see everything that I read, and I have those authors' signatures in those books, which were super cool. So make sure you join us. It's February 13th, the day before Valentine's Day, which is a Thursday, at our usual time. We do it at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern. We keep our things the same time just so that people can remember easily. And it's really going to be something that I think you'll remember and enjoy. So let's celebrate friendship and all the friendships that we've made in our book group by joining together and having a party. So that'll be fun. So again, you'll get your ticket in February's box, or you can order it separately on the store on my website just for $5. So I told you about too that we're going to get the glasses so that we're going to take a picture. Make sure you have those ready. Make sure you decorate your banner. We'll have some prizes. Decorate with your banner and other stuff. We'll have some prizes for people who have set up their house and done it cute to decorate. So that'll be neat. So also we are slipping in your free enamel pin for completing your 2024 reading challenge. Those of us who let us know, there was a place to mark on my website that you completed the entire challenge, and then we're able to slip your reading pin in. We actually have these reading pins all the way back. I think 2020 is when Alexa started them, and you can go back and earn each one. There's no deadline to earn them. The lists are on my website, so you can go back and read all those books. They should be readily available at the library if you can't find them in stores, or online. You can read digitally. Anyway, and if you forgot to tell us or you're not getting February's box, then it's just $5 for shipping and handling to get your pin, which of course we pay for the pin. So it's fun to collect and put them on your totes or whatever you're going to do. So let's start with Marianne Cronin. I'm so excited to welcome her. I just had a chat with her a few minutes ago to get ready for this, and she's just delightful and incredibly young. I was shocked by how young she is, young and smart and very sharp. She was born in 1990, which gives away her youth, of course, makes her close to Alexa's age. So Alexa and I were laughing about that. She was born in Warwickshire, England. And I am an Anglophile, so I love that. After gaining a PhD in applied linguistics from the University of Birmingham, she worked in academia until becoming a full-time writer. And we're very lucky she did. Her debut novel, 100 Years of Lenny and Margot, has been published in 30 languages and has been adapted into a feature film by a major Hollywood studio. I can't wait to learn more about that. That is so cool. So let's bring her on so she can tell us a little bit more about herself, the book, and her movie.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's so nice of you to join us from clear across the pond.
Yes.
I find all those book plates. I mean, normally we send books, but we were thinking, yeah, the logistics of sending that many books across the sea and have you sign them and unbox them, sign them, ship them back, and we better go with the book plates. So it was so kind of you to take the time to do that. Did that take you a long time?
Do you know what? It wasn't too bad. I had some films on in the background, had some Netflix, and I was trying to do 100 every hour. So I was sort of signing. And my big fear when I'm signing them is, what if I spell my own name wrong and I waste a book plate because I'm going so quickly. So I managed to not get any mistakes, luckily.
Well, if somebody talks to you, that's when it messes me up, because for some reason, I'm starting to think and talk to them, and then I write the wrong thing. So
Absolutely.
You were telling me that your daughter loved that you were signing stickers.
Yeah, she's 2.5, and she thought that it was just a big box of stickers, and she was so excited that mummy was just sitting there playing with stickers. So she thinks my job is mostly stickers now.
Yes, she's got to love that. So before we go any further, I have one giveaway to do here, where it is our very last January book box. These are all sold out, but we gave everybody one last chance to get this box. And how we do that each month is we put a post up in book group asking people to RSVP for the meeting, whether they're going to be here live, and to leave a question for our guest author. So this contains, for those of you who didn't see it, our challenge read. You can still get these on the website. You can still get your challenge card to mark off all the books that we're reading this year and to turn in at the end of the year. Matching bookmark. We have, of course, the lovely autographed copy via book plate of Eddie Winston's for Love. We've got our, these, I love these. I'm so addicted to these. These are mint malt balls and regular malt balls, mint chocolate malt balls. So they are a guilty pleasure of mine. We have our cute book group pens. They have sayings about reading on them, and they are colored ink, which I love writing in colored ink, especially in my day planner, which I am already got to put in the sticker for your book because I finished that already. Let me
I've got
show
mine
you.
here as well.
Yeah, oh, she's got hers too. Yay. Okay, so we've got our sticker sheets, and there's your cover. So I got to put that in. And so all these are fun stickers that Alexa created herself. She designed them all herself to help us dress up our book tracker. So anyway, super cute stuff. And it's our last one. And we are going to give this one to, let me make sure I get this right. I almost put on my sunglasses to read this, Alexa. That would have been funny. I wouldn't have been able to see it. Okay, we're going to give it to Krista Runk. So congrats. We always do a post tagging all the winners, so don't stress about collecting it right away. But when you see that post, there'll be a link, and you can go on, Krista, to the giveaway form on my website, which is the only way I ever gather any personal information because it's secure there. So don't fall for any of the scammers that go around and try and get your information. Okay, it's on my website on the giveaway link, and that's the way we have to get everything out. So Marianne, why don't you tell us all how you got your start?
Oh, yeah, I would love to. So, in terms of how I got my start in writing, so I was doing my master's degree at the University of Birmingham, and I was studying metaphor theory, and I was getting so into metaphor theory, and I was writing this assignment, and then this thought about the link between the word terminal for an airport and terminal for illness just popped into my head, and so I started writing, and that was the first line of my first novel, The 100 Years of Lenny and Margot. So I spent about 5 years writing that book. And then when I got to a point where I was like, right, I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready to sort of look for an agent and sort of start this process. And so I started just submitting to, I don't know if it's called the same in America, but we call it the slush pile, which is just fun. Yeah.
The dreaded slush.
Absolutely, because I knew nobody in publishing. I had no contacts, none whatsoever. So I just started looking at agents in London and compiling lists and sending the book out. And so I think within about half an hour of my first inquiry, they asked for a full manuscript. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And so I think over the few weeks, I got about 4 or 5 manuscript requests. And I was just so excited. I was expecting it to take ages and ages. And then within another month, I had as many rejections as I'd had manuscript requests. So it was rejected across the board. And one of the things that I noticed was that when the agents were rejecting it, they were giving me quite similar feedback. And so I kind of thought, well, I'm only going to get one chance to make a first impression. So I'm going to take the book, I'm going to take this feedback, and I'm going to spend some time fixing these things that people have pointed out to me. So I spent another 2 years on Lenny and Margot, and the book is dual narrative. So I split my Word document into a Lenny document, a Margot document. I started from the beginning. And then after about 2 years, I felt like, okay, I think I'm ready to try again, but you never know. And there was an agent who had said to me, when she rejected me, she said, I'll keep in touch. And so I thought, I'm going to. So I sent her an email and I said, look, I don't know if you remember me and Lenny and Margot, but I've rewritten the book and I'd love to know what you think. And then she invited me to London and then offered to represent me. And so the rest is history.
That's wonderful. I love that story. I mean, it it's interesting that you were able to get so many reactions all at once, but it follows a formula that I've given many aspiring writers when they ask me, how do you get an agent? I said, well, and you kind of did this just naturally. I said, well, write a query letter, pick a few and send them out, and then see if you get any bites. If you don't, something's wrong with your query letter, right? And you kind of took that, and then you took the feedback, and then you were able to adjust, and then you were able to go back out. And that's exactly, I love that you turned that into a constructive process as it should be.
Yeah, and
So
I'm quite a sensitive person. Like I always say, I'm like jelly in human form. Like I'm so sort of soft internally. And I anticipated that the rejections were going to completely break my heart. But I think I was so excited that anybody had even liked the pitch enough to look at the book that I thought, okay, well, this is going to be part of the process. But as you said, getting the idea that maybe the pitch was okay, but it was the execution that was the problem, that still felt like a gift in a way from these agents. And so I anticipated crying over it, and instead I was like, right, okay, we're going to take this and we're going to fix it, which is so not my normal style.
well, you're madly talented. I'm sure they were able to give
Oh,
you that feedback at least, because that, I'm sure that shone through from the beginning. So that, hopefully that provided enough encouragement too, that you were able to bounce back and come. Well, you did. So good for you. I think it's a great way to handle it. So congratulations on the movie adaptation. How did that come about?
thank you. Yeah, so this is for the first book, Lenny and Margot, and basically a studio has bought the rights to make the film, and they're still very much in negotiations, and that's as much as I know at this point, which is, had a very exciting Zoom with some producers in the middle of lockdown. So it felt a bit like a fever dream because I hadn't left my apartment in several months. And then I was on Zoom talking to these people that were like professional filmmakers. And, so it's very, very exciting, but there's not much happening yet, but I'm looking forward to hearing more when
I
the
am
time's right.
too. I am too. I had actually a British director who did Hannibal Rising and Girl with the Pearl Earring, who they were going to adapt my Evelyn Talbot series to the big screen. And so it was really fun talking. His name's Peter Weber. And it was really fun talking to him and the producers who were going to do it. The deal ended up falling through. This is not bad juju for you. I'm sure yours will take it to the big screen. It's a long story how that happened, but that initial excitement, I know how you felt. Like I was like, when I was on the phone with him, I was like, I'm like literally talking to Peter Weber. This is crazy. Very, very fun. Well, congratulations. And we can't wait for further news on when that's going to be released. And, I can't wait to go see the movie and see how they do with that. So what is your day to day like? I know you're a mom
Hmm.
with a challenge to raise children and write, something I did. I raised 5 kids while I wrote. So
Wow.
are you someone who needs quiet to write, or are you able to write with your daughter around?
I'm absolutely someone who needs quiet, and I also need to be completely alone to write. So if someone is behind me and can see my screen, I cannot handle it. Even in coffee shops, I have to find a seat where I'm like facing the wall. And it's so strange because no one's really looking, but it's like I have to get into the like private little world that I go into when I'm writing. So I split my time when she's in daycare, then I write, and then other times in the week she's home with me and we just hang out and play. Um, yeah, and I think one of the things that's quite nice about having such a structured week is that I have to write in the set hours when I have to write. I found that when I first started working solely on writing, I had the whole week ahead of me, and it was very hard to not be overwhelmed by all that time. Whereas now I'm like, right, okay, I have Tuesday afternoons, I have Thursday mornings, I have to sit and I have to do something. So
Right.
that helps me, I think, in terms of keeping that structure.
Yeah, I think that that sort of helped me too, because I knew if I don't do it now, I won't have a chance later. And so I often marvel with my husband. I'm like, I have way more time now, and yet I'm producing the same or less. And yet I had, I was running a diabetes auction. I was writing 3 books a year. I was raising 5 kids. And it was so crazy busy that I just couldn't waste time. You just have to stay on top of it. So I feel
I'm
like those keep you
I mean,
like mark.
5
Now I'm like, oh, I'm going to sleep in a little bit. I'm going to take time having a cup of coffee or whatever. And I think I must waste a lot more time than I realize. Because when I go back and look over my productivity, I'm like, how did I get more done when I had so many things going on?
Yeah,
So
I
good
mean,
for you.
5 is amazing. I can barely like, 1 is completely overwhelming to me. But I'm one of
Yeah.
4 children, and I look back and I think to my mum, like, how did you do, how did you manage it? And she was like, the time appears. She was like, the time, you find the time somehow in your schedule.
You just have no choice. Yeah. I mean, I went to all their sporting events and everything. And I think during that time, half the time I was plotting as I'm watching them, try to hit the baseball or whatever, so that I can get home and fuel my writing. So, anyway, as a mother, you just somehow make it work. I think that that's what you got to do. And so that's what you do. Whether or not you do it well sometimes is the question. Sometimes I look back and think, oh, I wish I hadn't been so pressed. I would have loved to have spent even more time with my children. But you have children during the most difficult time of your life. I often lament that. I'm thinking, why couldn't I have my children now? Where I'd be like, the book will get done or it won't get done, and I'm not worried. I'll just enjoy my children. But back then it was like, oh, I got to make it. I got to make it. So everything, all the pressures kind of hit you at that age, and you're just going through it now. So good luck. Good luck sailing through these waters. You'll do great. So what is the biggest criticism that you've ever been given, and how did you overcome it? I like to ask this question just to show people that the beauty of overcoming challenges, that it isn't easy for anyone.
Mhm. I think actually the biggest criticism would be it was during the process of pitching to agents that I was just telling you about. So when I was pitching Lenny and Margot, and one of the agents who came back to me, and she was lovely about it. There was no kind of cruelty in her words. It was just sort of, I'm going to let you know why I'm saying no. And she said that she felt like the book was just really, really slow, and it's not sort of super upsetting in terms of criticism, but I was like, oh no. And that was one of the big points where I was like, oh, she's right. And she said she wanted more things to happen, and it felt slow, and it felt really sort of just like it was floating along. And I was like, oh no. And I think the reason I always remember that criticism is because I realized she was right. And there's an element of, thinking like, oh, and sort of cogs were wearing in my brain. And I was like, okay. And the book, when I was pitching it was about 110,000 words. And I think on publication it was about 80. So there was a lot that came out. So she was completely right. But I think that criticism has always stayed with me. And when I was working on Eddie and sort of working on the plotting, I always remember her thing about like, it feels like it's floating and I feel like there's nothing driving it. And so I still have those words. And again, not in a bad way at all, but just in a kind of constructive,
Yeah.
keeping me
It
sort of
would be
checking my own
disheartening
stuff.
for a new writer to hear that, I feel like, because that would be sort of a nebulous fix in a way. Like, not, hey, if you just change this plot point, or if you just, you know what I mean? You're kind of thinking, oh,
Yeah.
wow, that's going to be something that affects the entire novel, like just a nip and tuck all along, not one spot fix. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I think that being able to take that would be a challenge. And you obviously took it on, trimmed that baby down, and
I think because I was working in academia, I was presenting at conferences and giving talks. And in academia, the world can be quite critical. People come to your talks and they'll raise a hand, and you can tell by the look in their eye that they're about to try and take you down. And so I think I'd grown a little bit of a thicker skin than I probably have now, just to that expecting criticism. My doctoral supervisors would read a chapter, send it back covered in red markings. And so I think I was a little bit sort of getting more used to that kind of experience. But as you said, yeah, I knew it wasn't going to be a quick fix, and I kind of had got so excited that maybe this was going to be the year that I got an agent, and then I realized no, this is gonna I need to start working on this from scratch and piece it all back together again. So yeah, that criticism always stayed with me.
And I've often found that, as upsetting as critical feedback has been to me in the past, because I'm very sensitive like you as well, I find that once I internalize it and make the fixes, I'm really glad for the process. Like, it does make it better. And so I've tried now to step back a little bit and look at that over the years. I've had more years to do that than you, and go, each time it's made it better. So don't take it so harshly, and try and use it for the stepping stone that it can be. And so I think that your book probably, benefited from that. If you said you cut it down by that much and gave it that much more forward momentum, then obviously that was a good thing. And so is it that same agent that you ended up signing with who gave you that critical feedback?
No, it was a different agent. That one was very much like, she didn't say keep in touch.
Well, you missed out. She's probably sorry about that now.
But yeah, the one I signed with, she'd said sort of vaguely similar things, but she had said that there's something in here, so keep going and keep in touch. So I sort of sensed from her that she was kind of
On the fence.
giving me this feedback to sort of give me a push in the right direction, rather than as a kind of like, the doors are closed kind of no.
Right, right. Well, I'm glad she did. So who is your biggest advocate, and how did you meet him or her?
I would probably say my agent. I think, yeah, I think um, coming into writing, as I said, with no contacts and sort of the only world of work I'd known was academia, which does have a publishing industry, but obviously it's a very different beast. And just her guiding me through the process. You know, she's been there since the very beginning. And when she signed me, we worked on the book together for about 6 months before the book went out. So I have it here. So this is Lenny and Margot, just for the cover.
Beautiful
Um,
cover. And are you happy with your
and
covers?
so happy. I love these covers so much. Yeah, so the Eddie Winston, which I also have here, is designed by Olivia McGiff. And when they sent me the cover, I was like, I mean, yes. I have no notes. Like, I was
I
just like, it's so, as you can probably tell from the curtains, my aesthetic as well, like the kind of style that I like. And she designed the cover to go alongside Lenny and Margot, just in the sort of style of it. Um, so yeah, I really love
Yeah,
them. And
so she's been a huge advocate for you. Did she also like the covers?
she did. And the thing that she did, one of the things that she did that was like really early on when I was like, oh, this is so cool, was when she sent Lenny and Margot out to editors to try and get the book deal, she sent little yellow roses, because there are yellow roses like featured throughout the book. And so she sent little bouquets of yellow roses to all the editors that she wanted to see the book. And so little kind of creative touches like that are
Yeah,
just, yeah. And she's always, you know, on the US side, I've always absolutely loved my covers. There have been some journeys in some other territories, as I'm sure you've experienced too.
yes, I
Um,
have.
and I think it's one of those things where, as an author, you have such an emotional connection to your writing. And I think when you see a cover that maybe doesn't quite chime with what you think the book is, it can be quite sort of ooh, quite
Definitely.
scary. And sort of going in, I was 29 when I signed my first contract. So going in sort of on the younger side and with no experience, I sort of was saying to my agent, well, can I say anything, or do I have to pretend to like it? Like, what do I do? And so, you know, she's like guided me through all of those processes as well, which has just been, you know, amazing. And now we're working on book 3, then she's, you know, cheering me on as I sort of
You have
work
a
out what
title
that's
for
going to
that
look
one
like.
yet?
I've got 3 ideas that I'm very excited about. And so at the moment, I'm kind of splitting my writing between them to see which one is going to be the one that sort of becomes
Congrats.
the book. Yeah.
So did you choose these titles yourself too? Because I know sometimes that's up for a debate as well as the cover.
So Lenny and Margot, yes, that title has stayed the same from the pitch to publication. Eddie Winston's original title, and I completely agree with why we had to change it, but his original title was Eddie Winston's Last Summer. And the thought there was, it sounds a little bit like there's a doom to the title. You know, things are maybe not looking so great for Eddie, and it adds a ticking clock that isn't necessarily part of the book. And so Eddie Winston is Looking for Love was something that we kind of worked. My US agent, my UK agent, and then my UK and the US editor were all kind of, we had lists, we were just brainstorming, and then Eddie Winston is Looking for Love kind of felt like the title that everybody was the happiest with. So
Yeah, yeah. I think that I loved your actual original title, but I do think that I would be afraid to have that title for fear of readers going, oh, I don't want to read a book about death, or I don't want, you know.
mhm.
So I feel like you made a wise decision, at least in my opinion. Not that it counts for much, but I do love
Thank you.
the titles and the covers. So they all came together very nicely. So did you sell in the UK before the US?
Yes, so in the UK, I was working under a 2-book deal. So Eddie was the second untitled book of a 2-book deal. And so just as I started, I was in the early stages of pregnancy when I started writing. So then I went on maternity leave. So I had a bit of a gap, returned from maternity leave, very panicked, like, I need to deliver this, this book. Oh my goodness. And my brain's melted because I haven't slept for like 6, 9 months. Um, and then in Germany, it's also under a 2-book contract as well. And what was lovely is that it's gone in the US. It went to the same editor who I worked with for Lenny and Margot. So I've been working with all the same team at Harper Perennial, which has been like really nice to work with them again and to sort of have all these familiar faces.
Yeah, yeah. It is nice to get some continuity with that. Yeah, for sure. So, in your opinion, what's the most important element of writing a good novel?
Ooh. I think for me personally, it's always been writing the thing that pulls at you the most, the thing that feels like the book that you can't not write. And when I used to work with creative writing students, I would always say at the start of my classes, like, if you want to write Jane Austen, fine. If you want to write the next 50 Shades of Grey, you do you. Like, whatever it is that's your book. Because if you're trying to write what's trendy now, then it won't be trendy by the time you get to publication. And if you're sort of trying to write the book you think you ought to write, then it doesn't always work that way. So after Lenny and Margot, I started trying to write a second novel. And Lenny and Margot has quite, it's not too sad of a book, but there are some really sad themes to it. And so I thought, right, well, that's what I need to do is another sad book. The thing I wrote, it's about 50,000 words of like unpublishably sad. It was too, like, I didn't think anybody would want to read it. I don't think even I really wanted to write it, but I felt like that's what I should be writing.
Right, you had
And so
established this and you need to follow up in this vein kind of thing.
yeah, and I'd had such lovely feedback from readers saying, "Oh, this book, Lenny and Margot made me cry, and it's really touching." And I thought, well, I can't sort of have any kind of pivot, so it has to be really sad. And then towards the end of that process, I was like, I don't think this is quite right. So I sent it to my agent. I was like, I don't know. And she's like, yeah, no, I don't think this is quite this is quite book tea for you. Um, and I think I needed to do that. We'd been locked down for a year, and so my creative kind of juices just weren't really flowing in the way that they needed to be. Whereas when I started writing Eddie, the minute I started writing, the first page of the book is the first thing that I wrote of Eddie, which also happened with Lenny. And as soon as I started, I was like, there's his voice. And I really felt like I know this person. I know what he thinks of this. I know what he thinks of that. I know what happens when someone's rude to him. I know what happens when someone's kind to him. And I started writing and I thought, oh, I don't know if this is too lighthearted or too romantic for a second book. But I was enjoying myself so much. And so I think for me, that's
Well, it
where
actually
my
has for me, it had a lot of really poignant, sad moments. I as the sense of loss, I mean, especially with Bella and losing her boyfriend and that profound, deep loss, that young love cut so short. And yet you really balanced it well. I thought the humor and the lighter, warmer moments, making Eddie as innocent as he was in many ways. I mean, just his responses were so pure and charming and sweet, was what I mean by innocent. And so I think that that really balanced it out so that you're smiling and you're able to take some of these darker themes of the people who have passed and you're seeing basically just the flotsam that's left of their lives. It kind of brings home this, wow, is that all a life can add up to, right? These bits and pieces of you that are left in this thrift shop. And to me, that was profoundly sad, maybe because I'm aging, but but I loved the story because it had meaning while being humorous and funny. So to me, that's better than just being humorous for me, right? Like I love the meaning in it. And so I thought that it hit on multiple levels, which made it a deep read. So I really
oh,
thought you hit it out of the park with that. So
oh,
great.
thank you. I think that balancing is like, oh, sorry, what was that?
I said I loved your answer to the last question too. It's
Oh,
one of
thank
the
you.
really sweet. I mean, people will pick plot or whatever, the certain element of writing, but the fact that writing a good novel takes a really an author who is putting their heart and soul and their view of the world into things. I think that's why readers feel like they know us after reading our work, is because we do put so much of our passion and our love in what we're doing. And so in a way they do know us. Our worldview shines through.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much of me in I think most of the characters that the protagonists that I write because they can't not be. I think when they're first person narrators, like it's really hard to not have little bits of your character kind of slip in. And sometimes my partner will read it and he'll be like, I think you need to take that out because that's just a you thing. Like, that's a you thought there. That's not an Eddie thought.
That's not what Betty thought.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. No, I agree that in writing in first person is a little closer. I think that's why I love first person. A lot of
Mhm.
people have a problem with it. I think if they have, at least I've heard from readers, they like third person, maybe because that's what they become accustomed to. But from the very beginning, when I first picked up a first person book, I absolutely loved it. To me, it places me in that character so immediately. I don't have to take the sinking in time that a third person book, which is ironic that I write in third person, but I do love to read a first person book. So I
Me
think,
too. Yeah.
well, did you start that from the beginning? You decided first person all the way from the very beginning?
Yeah, so Eddie came to me as a first person voice, and I sort of had that feeling of like, oh, I want to see the world through his eyes because he's such an optimist. He's so sunshiny and so sort of delightful and charming. And I was like, oh, I want to have a look at everything through that lens. And then when I was writing some of the chapters that are set in the past, that are anchored from a different character's perspective, they just came to me in the third person, and I thought, oh, I don't know if this is going to be a huge note when I send this off, and my editor's going to be like, you can't do this. um, but it just felt so right to see Eddie from someone else's eyes, but from a kind of a slight step back, like a distance, so we could see how Eddie interacts with other people,
Yeah.
and how he's come to be someone who hasn't had their first kiss in the age, at the age of 90. And there was no note on it when the edit came back, and I was like, all right, I'm not, not gonna ask. I'm just gonna let that slide right by.
So
Yeah,
it
and I
worked.
think yeah, and I think I've read a few books now that do blend first and third. And for me, I enjoy it because I love that pivot, like the camera of your mind just pivots to something else, which I quite like. Hopefully readers will like it too.
Yeah, yeah, no, definitely an effective way to go. So now we're going to play a quick little game before we get to other reader questions.
Mhm.
And Alexa has hooked us up for those of you watching, where I am going to give Marianne 5 American sayings. She is going to tell us the meaning of those. Now, she's probably going to be a lot better at this than I am. I spent a PhD in linguistics, but we will see if I can fare as well when she gives me her British sayings and I have to guess what they are. So Alexa has hidden them from me so that I have no idea what I'm getting. And Marianne, of course, has not heard hers yet either. So do you want to start or do you want me to start, Marianne?
I'll let you start, so we'll see how I do.
Those of you who are watching, play along in the comments, and you'll be entered to win a fun surprise package that we'll send out to you. So you guys get to do it too. Okay. So, and did you say me or you? I was.
I'll let you start.
Oh, I'm going to start. Okay. Sorry. I was so. I wanted to get in that they could join us. So that's where my brain was. Okay. So I will start. Monday morning quarterback.
Ooh, I'm gonna guess. So I think that's a football thing, and I think I'm gonna guess that it's like a team meeting in the morning.
Nice try. Not quite. Well, you were going in a good direction. It's
Okay.
second guessing something that, like a Monday morning quarterback, is too late to actually impact the game. It's after the game when you're able to say everything that you should have done. And so it's a way of, well, I can even read the actual thing. This is a person who criticizes the actions or decisions of others after the fact, using hindsight to assess situations and specify alternative solutions. So you can do it to yourself, or you can other people can do it. Like they can criticize what you should have done, but it's too late to impact it. So
Ah.
that's Monday morning quarterback.
I was picturing American football is like piling on top of each other, so I thought, well, maybe that's the morning meeting.
That is a good way to go, actually. I can see where you're going with that. Maybe that'll become a new thing where we'll use it in a different way, right?
I'll try and start it. I'll slip it into book 3 and see if it takes off.
Well, this one's easier. It's not sports related and it's been around
Okay.
for a long time, so I'm sure you'll know this one. Going postal.
Ooh, is that just being really angry, like really annoyed with something?
Yeah, just like freaking out. Like, remember back in, I don't know, it's been 20 or 30 years where I think there were some shootings or something in the post office. And so now that it's
Oh.
coined the term going postal over a small thing, but these people were just so amped up that, and so it's becoming extremely and uncontrollably angry, often to the point of violence, and usually in a workplace environment. So good job. You'll get this one too, I think. Behind the eight ball.
Ooh, I don't think I know that one. All I know of 8 balls is in Friends. They have that the magic 8 ball, and they have to
This is
shake it
this
for
is
an
a funny
answer.
term. When you get behind the eight ball, you can't hit the
Ooh.
eight ball into the pocket.
Oh.
So you have to be
Ooh.
careful. You know what I mean? You're trying to hit that ball in, but you can't hit the eight ball. So
Oh, so
it's yeah,
you're trying to do something without sabotaging something else?
yeah, you put you at a disadvantage. You're behind the eight
Mhm.
ball. You're in an awkward situation. It's going to be tough to get out of. So,
I'm so bad at this.
and knock on wood.
Oh, like something for good luck, like,
Right,
"Oh, it's not gonna rain, knock on wood."
right. Like I hope that doesn't happen. Knock on
Yeah.
wood.
Oh yeah,
Like
I
you're
do that.
keeping
I'm
yourself
very
by saying
superstitious. We have
right.
like, although we have touch wood, so like if there's wood in the room and I've said something, I will touch something.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I haven't heard of touch words, but yeah, the same similar concept
Yeah.
sounds like. All right. So you did pretty well considering. Oh, wait, I've got one more. I've got one more I left off. Maybe I misnumbered them. For the birds.
Oh, it's like gone to waste. Like the
Uh,
day's been for the birds, like the day's just like we've
yes.
not
It's
used it
it's
properly.
pointless or it's pointless or useless. It's for the birds. Doesn't matter.
I'll call that a half point maybe.
No, you did good. You did good. I think it works for that too. All right. So I'm ready to see what you got for me.
Okay, so the first one is if I said to you, "You're full of beans," what would that mean?
You're full of crap. You're full of shit.
I can see why you it means that you're full of energy.
Oh,
Like if you're
okay. The
full of
opposite. I thought
so if
you
you're
were full of
like
BS.
so you'd be like, "Oh, she's full of beans," if someone like jumps into a meeting and is like full of energy.
Oh, okay, good. All right, learned something. I was way off on that one.
Okay, next one. So if I said that someone left the room to spend a penny.
The room to spend a penny. That's a hard one. They went shopping. They left to go to the
Oh,
bathroom.
yes, yeah. So it's
Go to the
to go
bathroom.
to the loo. So you might say like, "Oh, I'm just going to spend a penny," and I think it comes from when you used to have to pay for public toilets, and maybe it cost a penny.
Yeah, that's what
But
I thought finally occurred to me because in India we did have to give money, to
Mhm,
be able to use the restroom, and so and that's what it hit me, and I thought, "Oh, it's probably a euphemism because you're,
yeah,
like, in a business meeting or whatever, and, I wanna say, "I have to go to the bathroom."
yeah.
Oh,
And the
well, I'm
British,
glad
we
at
love.
the last second at least it occurred to me. I'm thinking, "It can't be shopping if you're in a business." Okay.
Okay, next one is getting really pissed.
Oh. Well, in America, that's when you're getting very angry. Oh, getting very drunk.
Yes. Yeah,
I have heard it in that term before. I've heard
yeah,
that term. Yeah.
yeah. I feel like it's something you would only say when you were drunk as well. You'd probably think of a nicer way to say it if you're sober.
That's true,
Um,
that's true.
you're doing really well on these. Okay, next one, I'll give you a bell.
That's when I have no, I'll give you a bell. A prize? I'll give you a prize?
I mean, I like it, but it's to phone someone
Oh, yeah,
because I
that makes
think,
sense.
yeah,
Give you a
which is
ring,
funny
give you
because
a bell.
like in England now we tend to say like call a lot more, which I think is coming over from America. But we'd also be like, "Oh, I'll give you a ring," would be another one that I think one of my
Yeah.
American
And
friends was
that one
like,
I would have gotten, give you a ring because we used it too, but, yeah, bell, I hadn't heard it as bell, but that's a good one. I'll remember now.
and
Oh,
my
I'm 2
last
for 4,
one,
so not doing so great.
you're doing really well. Last one is going up the apples and pears.
Going up the apples and pears. Wow. These are hard, Lexa. Going up the apples and pears. Kinda going crazy?
It's going
No.
upstairs. It's Cockney
Oh,
rhyming slang.
okay, and how does that connect? Going up the apples.
So, up the apples and stairs, up the apples and pears, up the stairs. So basically the last chunk will rhyme with whatever the word is supposed to
Oh,
be. But
okay.
I think most of it has died out now, but there are a few things that sort of you'll still hear people say every now and then.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I heard somebody else say to me the other day something about, "He looks buff," and I'm thinking, "I have not heard that term in probably 30 years." Now it's he looks fit or he's ripped or he's jacked. I mean, and
Yeah.
so he looks buff. I was like, wow, okay, I can tell somebody must be my age or older.
You did really well though. I think you got 3, I think 3 out of 5. Yeah? 1, 2, yeah,
No, 2.
3 out of
I
5.
think I only got 2, but
Oh, did you?
yeah.
Well, it was funny because when I was writing the book, I thought, I wonder if they're gonna, have me change for the American edit thrift shop for charity shop. I wasn't sure if that was gonna sort of get changed, but everyone seems quite happy with happy
No,
with
I
charity
loved
shop.
the Britishisms in it. I really did. I mean, there were a lot of them actually. I thought, oh, this is not how we would state this. So it was very apparent that it was set in Britain, but that gave it that much more charm because it was so authentic to if you were, it felt like if you were living there, which is what the experience you want. So actually, I'm very glad that they didn't make you change those. As a matter of fact, I loved the mention of the Marmite and cheese sandwich when we used to fly over to to wherever the author lived that we were interviewing. We would fly and visit them in their home and do the interview there because it was just more of an up close personal thing for the book group. And we did this the first several years until COVID, which shut down the traveling thing. But before that happened, we flew over to the Isle of Jersey in the Channel Islands to interview Peter James. You may know him. He's a big crime writer in the UK, and his stuff is popular over here as well. And we just had a wonderful time with him. But on the way over there, we landed in London and we got to have tea with Julie Kirby, who's one of our book group members in the UK, and her husband. We went to tea and she introduced us to Marmite. So I even bought some and brought it home. Not that I ever ate it all. I guess I decided it wasn't my favorite after all, but it wasn't terrible. It was just really different to an American. And so I thought it was just so classic UK. I had to have some, so I bought it. But so I love the mention of that. And like, I didn't know when I was reading the book what twiglets are, but apparently they like, I looked it up. They have like a Marmite dusting on them or something.
Yeah, I mean, I am not a fan of Twiglets, but they're like really rock hard, kind of crunchy crisps. Like you could snap them. They're kind of almost like a breadstick in kind of their strength, and then they're dusted with like a Marmite flavor, which is not my go-to for crisps at all. Yeah, not a Marmite fan
Yeah. And then you
either.
say crisps, which again, that's something that we like. I'm like, crisps. I guessed it was potato chips. And I looked it up and I'm like,
Oh
oh, these are potato chips. Yeah. So we don't call them crisps either. So there were a lot of like fun things like that where, I was able to feel like I got to live in Britain for a little bit.
Oh yeah, there are some things that like when I went to New York very briefly a few years ago, and I really wanted to try Twinkies because I felt like I'd seen so much about them, and I was like, oh, Twinkies. So we tried them, and I was like, oh. I was
Yeah,
like,
like, I
hmm.
think I'll leave this in America.
I was like, well, I've tried it now, so
Well, do you
I'll
have
pick that up.
ding dongs and snowballs? No? Okay, those are kind of like the derivations of Twinkies, or they've got Twinkies, and then they do these chocolate covered hydrogenated oil type of like ding dong. It's really actually kind of good, but they're terrible for you, all of it. But so are crisps, I guess, right? High in
Oh yeah.
all the stuff we shouldn't eat. Anyway, as I said before, I love the construct of having Eddie work in a thrift store and seeing all the remnants of other people's lives, and that he loved the things that came in that had no commercial value, and that he would secret those away because they were kind of a riddle to other people's lives. So, has it made you look at things in thrift shops? Is that how you see things in thrift shops? Have you always seen them that way? Because it certainly made me take a step back and look at them differently.
Yeah, I think I've always loved the idea of charity shops. The little town in England where I grew up is called Kenilworth, and it's a teeny tiny town, and most of the shops there are charity shops. So as a teenager, I was like, this is terrible. But now I'm like, oh, wandering around all those charity shops obviously kind of went into my subconscious. Yeah, I love the idea of secondhand things, and I love wandering around charity shops. And it's the weird things that really sort of stick out to me. So there was a charity shop, the charity shop in Birmingham that actually Eddie's charity shop is kind of loosely based on. I was just wandering around there, and we found an entire set of Mills and Boon, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, and then 3 Book of Mormons. And I was like, what a collection for someone to have. I was like, I have so many questions. And just little things like that, like sort of funny little egg cups or business mugs. Like every time I look at things, I'm thinking immediately, like, who owned this? And why did you have it, and why did you no longer want it? And
That's
in my
how I am with
family,
small towns, I think. When I wander into a small town, I just think, who would live here and what do they do for a living? And so, but I had never really turned that curiosity to charity shops or thrift shops. I've often gone in and kind of wandered around just because it's interesting to see what you can pick up at a good deal. But again, it was the commercial view glasses that I had on. So I really loved changing that around and looking at it more from a humanistic, perspective. So I thought that, and that you were able to think of so many unusual items. I'm like, this girl has an imagination because like when you were talking about some of the things that came in through those doors, I'm like, where would she even come up with that? So I thought it was really, and it was an exhaustive list, or it wasn't exhaustive, but it was a lot. I'm like, she had to come up with a lot of items coming through this shop, and so I thought that was really clever.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, some of them were inspired by real trips that I'd taken to the charity shops. So the badges, there's like a little ceramic set of badges having breakfast, and I found that in a charity shop, and I was like, "What? Who made this?" It's like a dad badger, and he's got a nightcap on, and there's two child badges, and they're all having breakfast. And it was, I think, 40, maybe £50, and I was like, I don't like it enough to spend that money on these badges.
Yeah. You had to come up with values for all of this, and some of it I actually thought was kind of expensive, especially because, well, in recent years, it's been our money hasn't been as strong as yours, and so it's even more expensive when we go over there. So I thought some of these prices on these things, I'm like, are people going to pay that much for a Badger family? So it was super, super cute that you came up with all of those and had the prices. It
I
made it
think
very, very realistic.
I think I need to go back and find the badges because they've made their way into the book and it's gone to print. I feel like if the badges are still there, I feel like they do need to live maybe on a shelf in my office.
I think they do. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you haven't gone back and bought them already.
Fingers crossed, no one else fell
That's
in love with the
very
badges.
close to it. Here's the Badgers. I went back and got them.
So true. And there's a pig teapot as well that I found completely terrifying. And I found it on some of our charity shops, they'll have online catalogs. And so I found this pig shaped teapot. And I was like, that is the most frightening thing I've ever seen. It's horrifying. So I put it on my Instagram with a poll to see what other people thought. And it came out roughly 50-50 for cute and terrifying. And I was like, it's awful. But like, so that made its way into the book as well.
That's great. Well, I think that you have probably better thrift shops than we do. Our country isn't quite as old as yours, so you must have some really cool antiques and stuff that make their way into some of your thrift shops. So it would be I would love to just make my way through the UK going to all of the charity shops.
Oh yeah, there's so many things to be found. And I watched quite a lot of thrifting videos on the American side as well, like on Instagram and things, just to sort of see if there were any things that sort of sparked my interest. And it looks like your thrift shops are so much bigger. Ours are sort of the size of a living room. They're really tiny, whereas it looks like thrift shops for you are just these big,
Yeah,
much
we can
bigger
have
shops.
very big ones. Yeah, yeah, especially and there's like chains like Goodwill, and you know what I mean. There's which isn't quite the feeling that you have in your charity shop in the book. Of course, I love that it's indie, an
Yeah.
indie.
Yeah, it's like a little hodgepodge collection of things.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Stephanie Nichols wanted to know. She's one of our book group members. Said, "What prompted you to write about old people?" And I thought that was a good question because I too thought, I wonder what inspired her to do this. Older people are so marginalized and can get so lonely. And our society, especially American society, maybe it's different in Britain, but we tend to, I feel, like almost discard them. Like you're no longer as useful as you once were, kind of like some of
Mhm.
these items that find their way into the thrift shop. And so it always makes me feel bad for the older generation. Their kids are busy, they're raising their families. It's hard. It's not quite what it used to be where the families all live together. So anyway, what
Mhm.
what inspired you to sort of champion the elderly?
So there's two things really that inspired Eddie. So the whole book was actually inspired by a song lyric. So it's a Scottish folk song that I was listening to a lot when I was writing Lenny and Margot, like a lot, like probably played it 200 times. And I was playing it when I used to sort of play it for a very specific scene towards the end of the book. And it kind of, I don't know if you do this when you're writing, but like it was like underscoring the film in my mind. Like that was the scene. And there's a lyric in the song that says, "There are men of over 90 that have never yet kissed a girl." And I'd always loved this idea of older men who had just missed their chance and had kind of lost out on, on having the experience. And so I was sort of panicking about what book two would be. And I thought, well, maybe there's something in that. Maybe there's something I can explore here. And so Eddie's age very much came with the idea for the book, which was to just explore this idea from this song. And it was something that I talked about with my agent. She wasn't sure about having him being 90 and maybe making him younger. But it just felt right to me. Like often we'll get stories on like the BBC News of like a 90-year-old man who still drives a digger, or two 90-year-olds that have just got married. And so, you see those people in the news and you think, oh, that would be, that's where Eddie would be. And I think I love writing about older characters because they have had so much more life experience than younger characters, which enables me to go back into their past, to look at their lives, to sort of figure out how they became who they are. And also
That's a very
I just
important part of this story as well, right? His past
yeah.
and how he became who he is. I love it was very poignant, and there was some sadness involved in that too, right? So you really did have both. You had the nice sadness counterbalanced with the humor and innocence of his character.
Yeah, and I think for me, it was something that I'd actively tried to avoid because Lenny and Margot is about an 80-year-old and a 70, well, an 83-year-old and a 17-year-old. And so I tried to avoid having an intergenerational friendship for the for book two. But once I started writing Eddie, Bella kind of came into the shop and I was like, oh, that's Eddie's person. That's the person who's going to be his like counterbalance. And so at first I thought, right, well, I'm going to make her older. She came into my head around early 20s. So I thought, no, I can't do intergenerational friendship. So I'm going to make her younger, like make her older rather than younger. And it just didn't quite sit right. The character was just feeling really disingenuous. And so when I put her back at the age that she originally came into my head as, it felt nice to have the balances of, normally you'd have the older character with all the wisdom and the younger character with all the things to learn. But for Eddie and Bella, it's flipped in some ways that she's teaching him about romance and sort of dating in the modern times and things. So I had quite a lot of fun sort of flipping that balance.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Well,
and I
each
just love,
has
I
something
love,
to contribute to the other, which I think is makes it a very nice friendship.
yeah, and I hate reading books where you have characters who are older who sort of don't know how to use the internet or don't have phones. And Eddie's online, he checks the train time, he's doing his thing. My grandma's in her 80s and she's on Facebook and she's on LinkedIn, and
And
you
the
know,
dating online is hilarious.
yeah. And I went on to several dating for senior websites, and I didn't go as far as making a profile because I thought that might be a little bit too much, too creepy. But I did have a look to see what kind of language the websites were using and like how that kind of process was represented. um and yeah, I did have quite a lot of fun. I've had a lot of fun with it.
Oh, good, good. Well, are we getting short on time? Okay, Alexa's kind of telling me that I need to move on
Oh,
with some
sorry.
of these more questions. Okay, yeah, I know. I
I'll
just
be
wanted to
quick.
make it wasn't you. You're doing great. I'm tasting everything you're saying that I keep asking more questions, and I want to make sure I let some of these book group members get theirs in. Janine Dangler wants to know where did you get your inspiration for this book? You've sort of told us that story a little bit, but it was
Mhm.
something that I think that you were trying to avoid this intergenerational romance, and that it still was calling to you, and it worked out so well and was different enough from the first book that I think that's wonderful that it turned out to be a thing where you were able to champion this unusual friendship where they both have something to contribute to each other.
Yeah, and it's a friendship that sort of on paper you would think, how's that going to work? But they're just two people who really get along. They've got all this lifespan between them, but they really do just make each other laugh and they have fun together. And they're both lost and a little bit lonely. And so I think that they find this friendship that just comes together. But yeah, so the original idea came from a song which isn't on Instagram. I keep trying to add it to my Instagram reels and things, but it's not
Yeah,
there.
we
But it
need to hear it
seems
now.
lovely.
Yeah, I think we need to hear that. That would be awesome.
Yeah, it's on Spotify, so it's called The Rambling Rover by Silly Wizard, if anyone does care to listen.
Okay, definitely gonna have to check that out. So yeah, what I loved about their interactions, especially like on the park bench, was that was never Eddie being bossy. It was more they like live and let live and just sort of support. I just thought that was refreshing. It wasn't trying to force anything. It was just this feeling of togetherness and finding their way, but allowing room for the other person to do that in their own way too. So I thought that that was a healthy relationship, and it made me enjoy their interactions.
Yeah, and I think for Bella, she's so lost at the beginning of the book. She's really sad. She's kind of quite cynical by nature as well. So she's very much the opposite to Eddie. And I think everything she learns from Eddie is all through osmosis, just from seeing him go around the world with this like incredibly sunny disposition. And I think that lifts her spirits. And that's what sort of helps her move on to the next part of her life as
Right.
well.
Yes, that's exactly what I mean. And I thought it was interesting how frustrated she got with her therapist being unable to help her more, and using the letters to sort of reveal the depth of her pain and how she's coping with this. I loved how I felt as broken as she did for her when we got into the book, but and the healing happened so slowly. I almost didn't feel it until I kind of realized, oh wait, I'm feeling better too. And so it was a very natural progression through the grieving process. And so I loved those letters and sort of seeing this transformation take place. It was a
Oh, thank
perfect
you.
example of show don't tell.
Thank you. That was actually my editor. There were no Bella chapters in the first draft, and my editor was like, "I think we need to hear from Bella," and I really didn't want to write from her perspective in her head specifically. So then when I had the idea for writing the letters through therapy, I thought, "Oh, that's how I'm gonna put her voice in here." And I wasn't sure I'd get away with as many swear. I don't usually swear, so like in my writing, I was like, "Are they gonna let me do this?"
No,
But
I always hesitate with that too. And it's funny because sometimes I do get pushback from readers about swearing. But to me, swear words are, I mean, words are all neutral, right? A swear word, we all have chosen that this word is bad or that word. Tomorrow we could choose that yellow. Yellow's a new swear word. None of us can say yellow. And so to me, when it's that arbitrary, I'm thinking, but it's not bad by nature. I mean, it's just bad because we've all decided this is a bad word. That's a good word. So to me,
yeah.
if it's that arbitrary, I just write my characters the way I hear them speak. And I have had very little pushback from my editors, luckily. But I have had a few readers who are like, oh, you've used the F word. And I'm thinking, but it's just because we all decided, oh, that's going to be a bad word. It's not really a bad word in and of itself, right? It's just like any other word.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also the reason that your character is choosing that word is very important for the book. So it shows something about your character and why they've chosen that word and not another word. And so I think it's a useful tool if you're trying to show how a character is feeling. If they're losing control or they're really agitated, then you have that word as a
Right. Or
tool. And
even to characterize them as in the surroundings and their general upbringing, the friends they hang out with. I mean, it all filters into our language, right? What we hear
yeah.
on a daily
Yeah,
basis.
absolutely. Yeah. And
Yeah.
like I know that Eddie would never use certain words.
Yeah, diction is important. So Brooke Showalter says, have you ever found a special treasure at a thrift or charity shop? Look, she's got both there. Good for you, Brooke.
Do you know what I was so apart from the badges and the pig teapot, there's actually a treasure that I found in my real life that's made its way into the book. So quite early on, Eddie finds a letter that's like a handwritten list, like a shopping list, and then across there's different handwriting that says Gwen's last list. And that was something we found when my grandfather passed away. So amongst all his things was this list that my grandmother had written, and she'd died 20 years prior, and he'd
Oh,
held on to this list for 20 years, and he's written Gwen's last list 1995, and it is
wow.
her like beautiful handwriting with all these things that she had on her list to buy. And when we found that, I was so moved because I was like, he lived without her for 20 years and he held on to that for so long. And so it's in a very special box in my office. And so when I found that, that was one of the things that got me thinking quite early on about sentimental treasures. And if he hadn't have had the family to clear away his things, then what would have become of that letter and where would it have gone? And so
Lovely.
that's how that ended up in the book.
Yeah. Oh, that's really lovely. It's like I was going through my phone the other day because it was out of storage space and I was deleting old voicemails and I came across a voicemail from my mother who passed away 3 years ago. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've got her voice. I never even really thought of that because it was so buried down. I still have her voice. And then I had one for a cousin who died of COVID that also came up. And I thought, oh my gosh, so it's something that I'm still saving, right? Because then I can still go
Yeah.
back and hear their voices. And so it's a way to hang on to them a little bit longer. Candace Talent asked, Eddie lovingly collects bits and bobs and tokens from those who've passed on. Do you collect anything in particular? What is one of your most treasured possessions?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think probably my biggest collection of things would be books. Probably not surprisingly. I do try and slim it down. I try and be good, and I try not to bring in too many new books. Um, but I think one of the things that I'm starting to do now as a mother of quite a young child is I'm starting to become a little bit of a like, I must keep everything she makes
Yeah.
sort of person. And I'm trying to rein that in a little bit. But she's her first drawing that she ever did with crayons, that's on the wall in my office. And I feel like that's kind of my little reminder of like everybody starts somewhere and this is where she's starting with being creative. Yeah, I'm trying to do a kind of thing where I pick the best pieces and keep them rather than just end up with like boxes and boxes. But
I
yeah,
know it's hard to pare it down because later I wish I would have kept more of my children's things. Actually, I mostly have like Christmas ornaments and stuff, and then I treasure. I mean, they each have their memory box where I kept some stuff, but I kind of wish I had kept more. So I'm keeping probably too much of my grandchildren's stuff because I have one granddaughter who loves to create like nothing else, and she makes voluminous. I mean, every day, many, 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 many pictures, sculptures, everything. She collects flotsam just and uses it to recreate, egg cartons, trash stuff you throw on the trash, and she just, to her, it's all stuff she can make, so it's hard to throw any of it out. So good luck with your sorting process.
I think it's going to be like 80% of my book storage is going to eventually just be pictures and drawings and things, but it's
Yeah,
hard.
it's very hard, and sweet that she's already making things and that you're enjoying her so much. Gloria Valaruga said, did you know the sequence of the entire book when you started, or did it come to you as you wrote it?
Ooh, that's a good
Are you a
question.
plotter or
So
a pantser?
I'm definitely a pantser, but I start so far with both books. I've started writing the first page, and that's been the first thing that's happened in the book. And then within about a day or two, I've had the last line. So I knew the first line and I knew the last line. So I knew Eddie's final final destination doesn't sound quite right. Eddie's ending to the book. But I had no idea how to get there. And so it took about a year of writing. I sort of had the beginning of Eddie and Bella meeting, and I had all that, and I was quite satisfied with that. But then the second half of the book was like, I didn't want to look at it because I was like, and it was that feeling of just trial and error, like how does he arrive at this place and how does he get here? And then once I finally figured it out, I was like, oh, well, of course it's that. Like it feels like it was supposed to be that, but it took me about a year, so that process was and I was
Yeah.
thinking about it the whole time I was on maternity leave as well, because I'd sort of started writing when I was pregnant, and then I was like, okay, still don't know how he's going to get there.
Yeah, well, to me, it's sort of like you've got the shape of the story in, like if you're a sculptor and you're chiseling away, and to get to the shape that's already in the stone, if you will. So that's
Mhm.
sort of like when you said, like, yes, of course it has to be that way. Like you had discovered sort of that shape. I too am a pantser, and I tend to feel like authors who are more plotters go after those outlines, because that's the way they think. And people
Mhm.
who are character driven, I think, like both of us are, it's a little bit more of a fluid process with that plot because it's more about the character. So it's interesting. I've met both types of writers, and everybody will claim, that this is the process that it needs to be, but everybody has their own process, and it's what works for them.
I think my process is total chaos, and I feel like I would love to have some order to it, and I try to plan, and then as soon as I like start writing, it stops feeling real to me, and it starts feeling almost like I'm painting by numbers, and that it feels contrived. So I have to, like you say, just let the character, like, there are quite a few deleted chapters. There's one where Eddie goes to Zumba, which I was a little bit sad to lose, but it wasn't right for the book. But it was me just figuring out, like, maybe he goes to Zumba. No, he doesn't. But
That would be a fun extra scene to give out to your readers for Christmas or something. They
well,
love
we
some
do. There
scenes.
is an epilogue, a very very short epilogue that I'm working with Harper at the moment to figure out how we're going to release a tiny epilogue to the book. Tiny.
Yeah, oh, that'll be fun. I can't wait to get that stuff. So Krista Runk said, "Are these characters based on anyone you know?"
Ooh, I love this question, but I would say for Eddie Winston, not really. No, I would say I think I would love to know an Eddie. I would love to have an Eddie in my life. If anyone knows an Eddie that wants to be my Eddie, let me know. But I think it's felt less like there are characters from my life in this book than it has um, for Lenny and Margot. And Bella visually was very loosely based on a friend of mine that I knew from improv. And she actually plays Bella in the audiobook, which was really cool because I'd had her in my head when I was writing. And then when it came to casting for the audiobook, I was like, oh, she happens to be a voiceover actress. And so I was like, can I put someone forward? Because she's Bella in my mind. So if anyone listened, then that's who plays Bella.
I love that you do improv and that comedy works its way into your novels. How did you get involved in improv?
So a friend of mine did it and told me about it, and I thought, well, that sounds really fun. So I did a night class when I first moved to Birmingham, and I didn't know anybody, and so it's that thing of moving to a new city and being like, how do I make friends? So I did a few evening classes, and then that sort of the person who ran those did like workshops that you could go to every week. And especially because I was writing the PhD and Lenny and Margot at the exact same time, the thing I loved about improv was like writing is all about like squirreling away and like writing ideas down and keeping and like, oh, that's an idea, I'll write that down and save it. Whereas improv is like writing a story, but the piece of paper's on fire, and by the time you're finished, it's completely gone. And there's something really freeing in that for like a squirrel person like me to be like, okay, well, that was a really funny scene, but there were only 3 people who saw it, but there's nothing I can do now. So I feel like it helped me free up some of my kind of need to like make everything perfect as well.
Oh, good. So you must not be shy. Like I could never ever do improv.
Do you know what? It's funny because I in real life, in real life, I am quite shy, especially like meeting new people or in like a new environment. But with improv, because it's so fast, you almost don't have time to think. And it's not like when I used to do presentations in academia, I'd be so nervous, like going over my note cards and my PowerPoint. And whereas with improv, you have no idea. You're getting ready for the show and you don't know what the show's about. So there's no way to prepare. So you're so in the moment on the stage that you're not really thinking about like who's watching, which to be fair, in our improv group, the audiences were small. So it wasn't, we weren't pulling in big crowds.
Yeah, but what a great training thing for your brain. Good for you. Wow, hats off. That's something I absolutely could not ever do. I'm just too like I'd be like freeze. I can do the presentations just because I'm a preparer. Like I would prepare,
Yeah.
prepare, prepare, but I could never do improv. Like I have to know that I have my material to always fall back on if I get scared. So anyway,
And that's the
I'm
thing, yeah. Those first few shows, you'd be like, guys, we haven't got anything like how are we going to do this? But when there's more sort of experienced people on the stage, they hold your hand through it, and they kind of everyone's working to make everyone else look good
Well,
generally. But you
Lex and I
never
are definitely going to come over and watch you do one of your improv, because
know.
I think that would be really a wonderful thing to see, and I am so impressed with that. I was as impressed with that as I am the writing. We're
I would
able to,
love it.
because usually introverts write, and so I can't equate these two things.
I'll save you some front row seats.
Okay, I love it. I love it. Okay, Ashley Morris said, "What was the most exciting part about writing this book?"
Ooh. I think the most exciting part was when it started to become fun. And I don't know if you get this with your writing as well, but like you get over the first hurdle of what's it about? How does it end? How does it begin? And if you've got characters that are kind of bouncing off each other, that feeling of like I'm having fun with this now. And that's the
Yeah.
best bit, I think. Like Eddie and Bella in the park, those were my favorite scenes to write because I'd be like, oh, she's coming in with this feeling, or he's coming in with this thought, or there's a wedding happening and they're watching it while they're eating their lunch. And so that for me was, I think, the most sort of exciting, enjoyable part of it.
Yeah, I love getting the structure in and polishing. I'm a polisher. So I just love it's because the hard work's done. Once the imagination is done, the hard work's done. And I love playing with the language and tightening and doing different things. And I can procrastinate doing that for quite some time, having to then not create, something else that's new. Okay, we're running out of time. So let's see. Oh, Fran Bella said, "What are you working on next?" You told us you don't quite have a title. You've got a couple of things going. When do you have any anticipation of when it might come out?
Oh, hoping to deliver in August. That's a hope. And then I would imagine probably in maybe a year or two, I'd say after that. Um,
We have
but
a
yeah,
while to wait, sadly. I
sorry?
said we have a while to wait, sadly.
Yes, I am such a slow writer, and I feel like it's something I really need to get better at, but I'm so slow. And yeah, and I think also just at that beginning bit where you're like, my agent has approved this idea, but I'm like, there's this other idea that I really like, and I sort of need to figure out sort of which one. And obviously, it could be book 3 and 4 that maybe I'm just sort of happening to work at the same time. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sort of because I'm no longer under a contract, I can make a little bit of a sidestep in terms of genre. So I've been playing with some slightly spooky elements, which will
Ooh,
be fun.
that's an interesting teaser. Okay, well, looking forward to that. Nancy Henny wants to know, when did you know you wanted to write? Have you wanted to write since you were a child?
Yes, always, always. There was actually talking about things that we've saved. My mum had this big box of things in the attic that she'd saved from my school years, and she brought it over to the house. And there's this little book made of purple paper, and it was called Lucky Lump. And it was about this little lump who had a hat made of flowers, and she goes to the shops. And I think, based on the handwriting, I was maybe 5 when I wrote this, but I'd
Good.
obviously sat and written all these pages. And I think before I realized it was like a viable career option, I always thought that I would just write for me. So I started my first novel when I was about 19, finished it when I was 20. And it's really bad. And it's also about ghosts. So
There's a spooky element returning.
exactly, yeah. And so that's in a box in my attic. I don't even have the file for it anymore. But I think it's always been there, but I didn't think it would ever really be a thing I could do. And I sort of thought I would be in academia and this would be my fun sort of hobby for me.
Yeah, I loved how you worked academia into this novel, and it kind of gave me a glimpse into a world I have never been part of. So I thought that was interesting with the flashbacks with Eddie. and yeah, what he did. Um,
That was that was a real conference I went to. In the library that he goes to is a real library that I went to a conference there, and I just thought it was the most beautiful library in the whole, like I'd never seen anything more beautiful. So I was like, this is going to go into
wow.
the book.
Go into the book. Yeah, it was definitely the description of it made it sound beautiful. Ashley Scorsteth will end with her question. She said, "What is one hope you have for this new year?"
Oh, that's a nice question. I'd say work-wise, I would like to get the book finished by August. That's my goal. I had knee surgery last year and it didn't go very well. So I'm hoping that this year I'll be kind of able to get rehabilitated on my knee back to like being able to run and being able to like climb the stairs properly. So
It was
um,
it torn meniscus, or what did you do to your knee?
I had my kneecap was just misaligned, just the way that I
Oh,
was born, basically. So it was snapping out of the joint when I climbed the stairs.
oh,
So
wow.
they did a kneecap realignment where they basically break your knee and move it and then pin it in place. But one of the pins was incorrectly inserted. So then I had another surgery in November to take the pin out.
Uh,
It's been a whole process, but I think it definitely feels like it's getting a little bit better. But I'm hoping to be able to, I'm not allowed to like skip, and my little girl wants to skip, and I'm not allowed to jump or hop. So just sort of being able to do some of those things. And I'm working on the stairs. I can go up now, but not down.
okay. Well, gosh, we are hoping the same thing, that you get that in the new year, and we're
Oh,
anxious
thank
for you to
you.
finish your book. Looking forward to what you have coming out again. And thank you for writing such a lovely story, one we really enjoyed. I can't wait to go back and read about Lenny and Margot.
Oh, thank you. And thank you so much for having me and for including me in the book club. I was just absolutely delighted when my box arrived. It was so exciting.
Oh, it was a pleasure. I hope to get across the pond and be able to meet you in person someday
Oh, thank you.
at
And
your
I'll see you at
improv. You
my
want to do
next
it.
improv show.
All right. Take care. Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us. And
you.
thanks for signing all the book plates.
Oh, thank you. Bye.
Alrighty. Bye. Good night. So now I get to announce the top 10 contributors. Facebook chooses these. We do not. These are people in our book group who like and comment and support other people in the book group. And it's so important because it's what helps other people get word and also feel included and warm. And so they are a big part of what makes our group so special. So thank you to everybody who does that, even those who are not named in this top 10. But if you are named in this top 10, then you go into a drawing to win a year's worth of Brenda Novak book boxes, which you will share with 3 other people. So we take a year, and each person who wins this gets 3 boxes. So this first month we have as our top 10 contributors. Congratulations goes to Janet Roble, Nicole Duvall, Nancy Brady, Star Roybal, Marie Christensen, Jen Miller, Cheryl Little, Virgie Lane, Sheila Golding, and Barbara Miller. So thank you guys for keeping our group so active and being so responsive to the posts and to all the comments. That really helps us. We try and do the same. We love to interact with all of you. And each month, or actually next month, I wanted to tell you what we are doing for our book group. We are going to have Pam Jenoff, as I talked about with February's Brenda Novak book box. We have our Valentine's Day party coming up, so definitely don't miss that. It's only $5 for a ticket if you're not getting a box. And if you are getting a box, everything you're going to need is going to come in it. Definitely don't miss the box. We are going to have these cute glasses in that, and I can't wait to get the group picture. So we will see you for the Valentine's Day party on the 13th. And our last read is The Last Twilight in Paris by Pam Jenoff. And it's a thought-provoking story set in World War II. Our book group meetings are always the last Thursday of the month at 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern. So we're going to have 2 get-togethers next month. We're going to have our Galentine's party. Well, actually, we have bingo. Bingo's coming up at the first Tuesday of the month. And then we are going to have our Galentine's Day party. And then we're going to have our book group meeting. So we're going to keep you busy for February. Make sure you put those things on your calendar. And I hope to see you all there.